Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review to Everton's 1-0 defeat to Brentford yesterday afternoon. For me, Everton are in danger, a lot of danger of being in a relegation battle over the next coming weeks and months. We have got an absolutely torrid run of fixtures coming up over the next couple of weeks and months, include the likes of Liverpool on Wednesday night, Chelsea, Leicester, Arsenal, all coming up over the next couple of weeks or so. And at the moment, this team doesn't look like it could buy a point. Never mind, go out there and put a performance in against those sides good enough to earn a point. We were absolutely horrendous again last night. And it's becoming a bit repetitive, this, isn't it? Sitting down on a Monday afternoon, on a Monday evening and talking about another absolutely appalling Everton performance. It seems like we do it every single week. It seems like every week we sit here on a Friday and say, this is a must win this, or let's hope we see a reaction, or let's see if we can see anything different from the Everton side, from the manager, from the players. And yet every Monday we sit here and we talk about the same performances, the same results, the same disappointing, appalling, disgraceful games of football every single week. And this one yesterday is another one to add to that collection, isn't it? Let's be perfectly honest. Brentford weren't very good yesterday. They weren't. Okay, they had a penalty in the first half, and I've seen a couple of people on social media saying, Cam, it wasn't too bad. We controlled a lot of the ball in the second half. We performed a lot better than they did. They got a penalty which on another day mightn't have been given, and they won the game off of that. It's nothing to be too vexed about. But I disagree completely with that. I think the fact that we had so much of the ball in the second half, and the fact that Brentford were absolutely nowhere near the ball in the second half, and we still couldn't create any clear-cut chances. It's not like we're sitting here and we did the post 3 times or we did the bar 4 times and we're sitting here saying, do you know what, on another day, that chance could have gone in, or this chance could have gone in, or that chance could have gone in, and maybe we'd have gotten all 3 points. I think we still could be playing now. Now, bearing in mind, at the time of live streaming this, it's 10-5 the next day. I think we still could be playing now and we wouldn't have scored. So yes, we had 80% possession or whatever it was. Yes, we had a lot of the ball. Yes, Brentford weren't doing anything, but we weren't doing anything either, and that worries me so much, that we come up against the side who conceded 3 last week to a Newcastle team who are absolutely dreadful. We had so much of the ball in that second half. They offered absolutely nothing to the game in that second half. They sat back and it was almost as if they said, right, let's just hold on to this. And yet we still couldn't cause them any real issues. We still couldn't create any chances that make you go, do you know what, we were a little bit unlucky there. We weren't unlucky, we were absolutely awful. I know we should have had a penalty, and we will talk about that a little bit later on in the live stream, but it's becoming increasingly more difficult to watch this footballing side week in, week out. We've got a Merseyside derby on Wednesday that I think is make or break for Rafa Benitez. I do think he'll be in charge come the Merseyside derby, because I think had he have been sacked, it would have happened by now. But I honestly do think it's make or break for the manager on Wednesday evening. Now, there's a debate as to whether or not he should be sacked. One thing is for sure, is Rafa Benitez certainly isn't the only problem at Everton Football Club, and he's not the biggest problem at Everton Football Club either. But at the moment, he is a problem. At the end of the day, some of the tactics that we saw on Sunday were disgraceful. The substitution situation was baffling for me. I just can't understand it, and we'll talk about it, as I said, a little bit later on in the live stream. But the reality of the situation is above any of that, the majority of the fan base have turned now, and we knew this was going to be the case. We knew that the big question when Rafa Benitez was appointed as Everton manager is what happens, if we go on a bad run of form and a lot of the fan base turn, are we able to turn back? Are we go on a good run of form, or is that the end for Rafa Benitez? And the Merseyside derby was a fixture that was always used as a sort of almost a review point for Rafa Benitez, in my opinion. I said that a couple of times before the season started. What happens if we're 2-0 down in the Merseyside derby at Goodison, and those lot are, near the top of the league singing his name, and we've been on a bad run of form? And some Blues, quite rightly at the time, said, yeah, Cam, but that's being pessimistic, that's being negative. What happens if we're 2-0 up in the Merseyside derby and we're on a good run of form? And, yes, that was a possibility at that point, but at the moment, it's more likely going to be the first, isn't it? We're in an awful run of form. We haven't won a game of football for 2 months. We are nearing a relegation battle, if not already in a relegation battle. I would say we're in a relegation battle. I really, really would, because I look at sides like Brentford, who I think will also be in a relegation battle come the end of the year. I look at teams like Newcastle, who managed to put 3 past this Brentford side, a week before, a week earlier. Norwich, who beat this Brentford side, and we didn't show anything as to suggest that, in our upcoming fixtures, i.e. Leicester, Chelsea, Liverpool, even Palace in a week or so's time, I've not seen anything to suggest that we're going to pick up, points in those games. And if we don't, then come January, we'll be in a fight for bottom 3. And what worries me the most with that is, I said it yesterday on the Instant Match Reaction about Everton, not being a Norwich, not being a West Brom, not being a Fulham or sides like that. And by that, what I mean is, if Everton were to get relegated, I don't think it's as easy as saying, yeah, well, we'll win the Championship and we'll come back up. I don't think we would. I think if Everton were to get relegated, and I'm not saying we will get relegated this season, but I think if it were to happen, whether it be this season or another season, I don't think we'd see Everton back in the Premier League for a long, long, long time, unfortunately. I think it'd be like Sunderland. And what scares me would be like Sunderland. What scares me the most in this entire situation is if these players are dragged into a relegation battle come January, come February, if we're not playing particularly well and we're getting beat, we're losing to these teams that, are better than us. Have these players got the bottle? Have these players got the desire? Have these players got the passion, the grit, the determination to fight their way out of a relegation battle? I don't think they have. If I'm being perfectly honest with you, I don't think they have. I think we're more likely to see these players lie down, roll over, get their bellies tickled, and we'd be, another team that unfortunately is relegated, having shown absolutely no fight whatsoever. And that's what worries me is, yes, we might have on our day when players are fit, i.e. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Decore back to fitness, Yerry Mina, etc. If we can keep those 4 players fit for the coming 4 or 5 months when they return, then yes, we probably will be alright. But what happens if Dominic Calvert-Lewin gets another injury, or Yerry Mina very possibly gets another injury? What do we do then? As I said, I personally I can't see these players having what it takes to dig their way out of a relegation battle, and I honestly can see us being in a relegation battle come the end of sort of December, January time, with the fixtures that we've got coming up. And obviously I could be wrong. We could turn up on Wednesday and surprise everybody and put in an half-decent performance and get a result, and that might be the catalyst to, sort of give us that little bit of confidence and that little bit of momentum to go on a bit of a decent run of form. It's happened before. It wouldn't be a massive surprise. However, I think yesterday was the perfect opportunity to go out there, get 3 points, give us a little bit of a boost of confidence, give us a little bit of a boost of, momentum going into a Merseyside derby, and then obviously, see where we are on Wednesday evening. And as I said, it wasn't exactly like we come up against the Brentford team that are oozing with quality and that were absolutely unbelievable yesterday. They had a couple of chances in that first half that, maybe we were lucky to get away with, but in the second half, for 45 minutes, they didn't get near the ball, and yet we were still void of ideas. We still didn't look anywhere close to scoring or creating an opportunity, and there's many a reason for that, and a lot of those reasons fall on the manager. They do. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think Rafa Benitez is the biggest problem with this football club. And I said it yesterday on Twitter. I think if Rafa Benitez is sacked tonight, tomorrow, on Wednesday, on Thursday, it doesn't really change the mediocrity at this football club. It doesn't. Because the board is still in place, the director of football who has failed at his job is still in place, the players who have absolutely let down manager after manager after manager are still in place. So Rafa Benitez as the Everton manager, or Rafa Benitez not as the Everton manager, yes, you might be able to bring in a better tactician or somebody that makes better decisions, but this horrible, vile sort of mediocrity that runs throughout the football club from top to bottom still remains, whether Rafa Benitez is here or not, and that will remain until the entirety of the board are moved on, the entirety of those players that believe that finishing 10th and 12th is acceptable are moved on, any of the backroom staff that believe that are moved on. It won't change until that happens. But at the moment, a lot of frustration is being pointed towards the manager. Understandably so, because as I said, he does not escape criticism. He doesn't. And I don't know really which camp I'm in, to be honest with you. I think I'm more so in the camp right now of I sort of feel like this has almost got Marco Silva's second season written all over it, and by that what I mean is under Marco Silva in his second season we played Norwich at home, and I remember sitting in the barber shop couple of hours before the game saying this is a must win. If we don't win this, he's got to be sacked. And I done my instant match reaction after the game saying he's got to go now, and they didn't. They left him in post, and the next game we had was the Merseyside derby on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night, and I don't know why they kept him in post, but they kept him in post. We got absolutely battered in the Merseyside derby at Anfield, and then they sacked him the day after. And then we went and got Duncan Ferguson before Ancelotti. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different at the moment because Rafa Benitez has been in a job a lot less time than Marco Silva has. But my view at the moment is if the board have got any ideas of sacking Rafa Benitez, if Rafa Benitez leaving the football club is in their thought process, then what's the wait? What's the wait? Let's be honest, they haven't got a plan B, They haven't got a plan C. They simply haven't. We established with Carlo Ancelotti that Everton Football Club don't make contingency plans. They don't plan, months ahead, years ahead in advance, because it's ran like an absolute travesty, this football club, and ran by people who haven't got a fucking clue about football. So there is no contingency plan. There should have been a contingency plan in place when Carlo left, because somebody in that boardroom, somebody working for the football club should have said when Carlo Ancelotti signed his deal, right, there's a clause in that contract that states that if Real Madrid come in for him, he can go with no problem. So even though that might be unlikely, let's prepare for that happening. Let's have a constant list of 5 managers that chops and changes over the next few years, so that if he does end up leaving, we've got names we can go to straight away. They didn't. They thought, why would Carlo ever leave Everton? We're boss. We do AGMs when we don't even have to. We sell nice pasties at the ground. We're the first club to have had its own podcast. Why would Carlo Ancelotti leave Everton Football Club? What happens? Bish bash bosh. He gets an offer from Real Madrid. He leaves Everton Football Club, and then we're sitting there for 8, 9, 10 weeks, whatever it is, scrambling around looking for a manager. Now, the same should have been done when Rafa Benitez was appointed. The club should have looked at the appointments and gone, do you know what? In case this goes sour, which is very possible, we're gonna create a contingency list of a number of managers that could come in and replace Rafa Benitez, but they won't have. So that's where I sort of stand on the Benitez in, Benitez out situation. If the club are even considering sacking Rafa Benitez, then almost what's the wait? Why wait for after the Merseyside derby? Why wait for us to be absolutely embarrassed on Wednesday night? And I'm not necessarily saying that sacking Rafa Benitez is the right option, but one thing I do know is that he got it terribly wrong yesterday, and we're starting to see a stubborn side to Rafa Benitez, which is just not needed at this football club at the moment. We've had many a stubborn manager over the year. Roberto Martinez, Ronald Koeman. We've had so many stubborn managers over the years that were very stuck in their ways and wouldn't change their ways for anything. We simply do not need another one. And yesterday I think we saw that there's a stubborn side to Rafa Benitez that we just can't afford to have at the moment. We simply can't afford to have. Like I said, I want to go into a number of things in today's live stream. We will get into the live comments as and when we can. If you're watching and you're enjoying, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. 80 odd people watching in the first 15 minutes. That's absolutely unbelievable. If you could hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel, that would be absolutely fantastic. If you don't mind, I want to talk about Rafa Benitez's indecision, his lack of substitutions, which again baffles me. I want to talk about Salomon Rondon, because I'm getting to the point now where I think Salomon Rondon is being hung out to dry by the manager, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I want to talk about the penalty, I want to talk about Brentford, and I want to talk about Wednesday as well. But we'll get through all of those points as the live stream goes on. But yeah, it was another absolutely shit show of a performance, wasn't it, yesterday? And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I am utterly dreading Wednesday night. Utterly dreading it. I think the atmosphere will be horrible. I think there is a very possibility, it's very possible we could go 2-3-0 down in the opening 10 or 15 minutes, because forget the Merseyside derby, forget Rafa Benitez, forget, where we are in the table and this, that and the other. Let's take this game on Wednesday as it's in its base sense, and its base sense is that Liverpool currently are one of the most informed teams in the league. They are one of 3 teams who will challenge and potentially might win the title this year, whether we like it or not. They're winning games comfortably, week in, week out. Okay, they had the odd blip with West Ham here and there, but typically when they win, it's by 3, 4, 5. They blow teams away. And as I said, one of the most informed teams in the league. Ridiculous amount of quality oozing through the side. Everton, on the other hand, one of the most out of form, in fact, probably the most out of form team in the Premier League. Players strolling around, not really showing like they give a shit, not really acting like they give a shit. Multiple injuries throughout the squad, throughout the team, that are having a massive impact on us. And, sort of morale around the football club at the moment is at arguably an all-time low. A lot of fans want the manager out. Manager's being very stubborn at the moment, making wrong decisions, not making decisions when he should be making decisions. And now we've got to face that side. It could be an absolute whitewash on Wednesday. It could be an absolute... It could be like a rugby... It could be a rugby score or a cricket score or whatever the saying is. It could be truly embarrassing. Truly, and by truly embarrassing, I'd go as far as to say this could be the worst Merseyside derby loss Everton have ever experienced on Wednesday night if things don't go to plan. And to be honest, I don't know what the plan is. And yes, there is that massive possibility that we go a couple of goals down in the opening 10 minutes. The crowd again turns on Benitez. The Liverpool fans are singing his name, shouting his name, this, that and the other, Agent Rafa, all of that nonsense. And I don't see a way back for Rafa Benitez after that. Personally, I don't. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't see a way back for Rafa Benitez in that scenario. I said it before he signed for the football club when we were linked with him. I said, it's all well and good talking about what he can bring and that, and ignoring that Liverpool connection. But what happens if we're on a bad run of form, we've had some injuries, and we're losing to them at Goodison, and they start chanting his name? A lot of fans will turn and won't turn back. And I do feel like that'll be the case on Wednesday night. But anyway, we'll get into the derby a little bit later on into the stream. As I said, if you're enjoying, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Get your words, get your thoughts in the live comments. We'll get involved with as many of them as we can as the stream goes on as well. Eugene says, Abdoulaye Doucouré makes unlucky Everton claim and sends Liverpool message. Paul says, God help us if they score early on Wednesday. Mozza says, I know. You're not because we're shite, but alright, Cam. Alright, my mate. ABG says, hi, Cam. Uden says, Ian Wright and Alan Shearer agree on Everton penalty claim. ABG, I haven't seen the Darren Farley video because, quite frankly, I think he's about as funny as this cup of tea sat next to me. David says, Rafa says, stop complaining, be happy with that with shit. And Eugene says, the Corey wants Everton responsibility. John says, if we win on Wednesday, is it all forgiven? It's not all forgiven, because we're still, in a very dangerous position. But if we win on Wednesday, I think that it will certainly, obviously, work in the manager's favour. But anyway, we will talk about Wednesday a little bit later on in the stream. We are here to talk about, the game yesterday. We will talk about the game yesterday because that's what you do on a review. So, Rafa Benitez lined up with, I would say, an expected team. I think we predicted the starting 11 in the preview pretty much, I think spot on to what it was. Jordan Pickford was in goal. We had a back four of Luca Dean, Seamus Coleman, Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey. Obviously no Yerry Mina, still out injured. Alan partnered Abdoulaye Doucouré, who made his return to the first team in the centre of midfield. And we had Anthony Gordon, Alex Iwobi, Andros Townsend and Solomon Rondon as our front four. Obviously, Damari Gray make the bench, but not deemed fit enough to start. And I looked at that team, and yes, people had an issue with Solomon Rondon starting. Yes, people had an issue with Alex Iwobi starting. But I said it on Friday, and I'll say it again now. My issue with these players isn't necessarily the fact that they're starting. Firstly, I don't know why it comes as a surprise to anybody that Solomon Rondon started, because Rafa Benitez literally said on Thursday in his press conference that this game is more suited to the experienced striker. So it was either going to be Solomon Rondon or Cenk Tosun, and he was obviously going to pick Solomon Rondon over Cenk Tosun. So it was absolutely no surprise to me whatsoever. And as I said, I don't particularly have that big of an issue with Solomon Rondon and Alex Iwobi starting the game, because I'm not, whilst I'm an advocate for giving the young lads a go and giving them opportunities, I'm not necessarily sitting here saying Lewis Dobbin needs to start, Ellis Sims needs to start, because they're both young players with not much experience between them whatsoever. Ellis Sims hasn't even kicked the ball in the Premier League. Lewis Dobbin has had very little experience. I completely understand if the manager says, listen, they're not ready, they're not good enough to start. And then, unfortunately, the only options he's left with are two that aren't very good. And that's just the way it is. Injuries have affected us. Obviously, Richarlison's suspension affected us. I understood it, and I looked at it and I thought, what's the point in being fuming? We knew it was coming. It was expected. What's the point in being fuming? My issue with Rafa Benitez when it comes to this situation is that he again watched Solomon Rondon do fuck all for 90 minutes and never bothered to A, take him off, and B, give him any help. Same with Alex Iwobi. He watched Alex Iwobi run around doing very little. Now, some people think Alex Iwobi had a relatively decent game yesterday. I said it yesterday. On the ball, he was alright. He wasn't awful. He didn't give the ball away an awful lot. He wasn't a disaster, but he brings nothing to this side. He does nothing, and he brings nothing to this side. So you can have as good of a first touch as you want. You can be as, decent on the ball. If you're a winger, you're a forward player, and we're playing Brentford, one of the most out-of-form teams in the league, a defence that ships goals for fun, very rarely keeps clean sheets, conceded 3 to a really poor Newcastle team last week, and you can't create chances, you shouldn't be anywhere near this team. I don't care if you've got a good touch. I don't care if on the ball you've got nice feet. At the end of the day, if you're a winger, if you're a forward player and you're not creating chances, getting assists or scoring goals, you shouldn't be in this Everton team. That's for Alex Iwobi. As for Solomon Rondon, I do think he's being hung out to dry by the manager. I really, really do. Now, whilst, yes, I understand that, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison are both out, and had they have both been fit, or even one of those been fit, Solomon Rondon wouldn't have started this game. I get that. But as I said, my massive issue isn't necessarily Solomon Rondon starting or Alex Iwobi starting. It's the fact that the manager persists with these players after 55, 65, 75, 85 minutes when they're not doing anything, and when they've not done anything for weeks and weeks and weeks on the bounce. I'm not sitting here saying Lewis Dobbin needs to start, Ellis Sims needs to start. I'm not. However, I will sit here and say, when you watch Solomon Rondon do fuck all for 70 minutes, why not give Ellis Sims a go? Why not give him a chance? What did we have to lose yesterday? What did we have to lose? We were 1-0 down against the Brentford team that weren't doing anything in that second half, with half an hour, 25 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes to go. Why is the manager not throwing the kitchen sink at it? Why isn't he throwing everything at it to change that game? Why isn't he looking, going, do you know what? Solomon Rondon has done absolutely nothing in this game. Demarai Gray come on, and within 5 minutes, he put 2 absolutely brilliant balls across the box. Brilliant balls across the box. Solomon Rondon was waiting for the bus to get to the box. Now, as I said, start him because he's experienced this, that and the other. He isn't good enough. And what would have been... What did Rafa Benitez have to lose to take Solomon Rondon off yesterday and put Ellis Sims in there and say, listen, Ellis Sims mightn't have gone out and scored, he mightn't have gone out and created, he mightn't have gone out and got, changed the game. However, he might have gambled on one of them runs because he's thinking, do you know what? I've got a chance here. I'm playing in the Premier League. I'm playing for Everton. I'm going to go and, work my ass off. It's the argument I have with Anthony Gordon. I had a load of people yesterday. Anthony Gordon, shite, he was awful. He couldn't take a man on. He couldn't pass the ball. That kid was the only one that looked like he gave a fuck yesterday. And yes, he wasn't great technically. And yes, his final ball needs to be improved. And yes, he isn't scoring or he isn't assisting. But to be honest with you, neither's any fucking body else. But at least he tries, at least he runs around, at least he shows he cares, at least he works hard. And it would have been the same case with Ellis Sims, and it would have been the same case with Lewis Dobbin. Yes, they mightn't have changed the game. Yes, they mightn't have come on and scored an hat-trick and made us win the, and won us the game. But they'd have gambled on those runs. They'd have worked hard. They'd have given a lot more than Solomon Rondon give, and that's because he gave fuck all, and he hasn't give anything for however many weeks he's been in the starting 11 now. And you know what? My frustration isn't even aimed towards Solomon Rondon. It really, really isn't. Because I'm seeing a lot of Evertonians who are straight at Solomon Rondon. He's this, he's that, he's shite, he's this, he's the other, he's the other. I'm not particularly disagreeing with any of that. But let's be honest, Solomon Rondon didn't turn up at Finch Farm in the summer with a gun to somebody's head and say, you will sign me and you will play me every week. He didn't turn up and force Rafa Benitez to pay him however much money he's on a week, in the same sense as that he isn't turning up every match day and forcing Rafa Benitez to start him. I'm sure had Solomon Rondon had seen his number in the 60th minute to come off as a substitute for young Ellis Sims, I'm sure he'd have had absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. Honestly, at the moment, I feel like Rafa Benitez is hanging Solomon Rondon out to dry. I really, really do. I think I almost liken it to going to war with a plastic knife and a paper plate as a shield, and Solomon Rondon is that paper plate as a shield. He's not protecting very much whatsoever because people are still going for Rafa Benitez, but it's almost like Rafa Benitez is saying, right, aim all your frustration towards this fella here up front, and I refuse to, because we know what Solomon Rondon is. He's not very good. He won't be starting games of football when Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison are back to fitness. We thought when we signed him, and I thought when we signed him, and I'll admit this, that he was going to come in, he'd be sort of a like for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He'd hold the ball up, he'd get on the end of chances, but he isn't doing it. And yes, he mightn't be fit enough. I'm sick of hearing the excuse of fitness, and I feel at the moment that Rafa Benitez is sacrificing results for Solomon Rondon's fitness, i.e. he'd rather Solomon Rondon stay on for an extra 5 or 10 minutes because he gets fitter than change the game and bring on a couple of young lads to try and go for the win or to get a point out of it. I knew that we could still be playing today with that same forward line and nothing would have changed. Who knows what would have happened if Ellis Sims had been given a go, if Lewis Dobbin would have been given a go. And John says Rondon doesn't help himself. He's not very good. He's very good at jogging around doing nothing. I'm not sitting here particularly defending Solomon Rondon. I think he could work harder. I think he could do more. I think as a footballer in previous years, he's shown that he's a lot better than what he's shown at Everton. But what I'm saying is, this fella doesn't start himself. He doesn't turn up with a gun to anyone's head and saying, I'm starting. The manager persists with him, and the manager persists with not taking him off when it's clear that he's not offering anything. And that, for me, is down to the manager and not the player. That is awful, awful man management. Awful man management, because what you're doing there is you're almost ignoring. In fact, I don't think he is ignoring. What he's doing, Rafa Benitez, is almost saying, if you're on the pitch, then the majority of the fans' frustration goes on to you. So I'm going to keep you on the pitch for as long as possible. Because if he takes him off, then no one can moan at him. Had he have not started yesterday, then we couldn't really be sitting here moaning about him, could we? Because he wouldn't have started. He wouldn't have had an impact in the game. And I get that he could run around a little bit more. I get that he could do a bit more. Listen, Solomon Rondon for me is the definition of a basic footballer. He doesn't really cause... what I expected was a footballer who was going to come in, cause defences real problems, use his body, use his strength, use his ability to hold the ball up, play the ball out, get in the right areas to score chances. He's not doing any of that. He isn't doing anything. He's not bringing anything to this Everton side. But as I said, he isn't picking himself. He isn't starting himself. He isn't demanding that he plays every game. The manager is putting him in there. The manager is picking him, and the manager is leaving him out, hanging him out to dry when things aren't going well. It's a complete and utter just stubborn mentality from Rafa Benitez. And this is where I will blame Rafa Benitez. He was indecisive last night. Indecisive. We had a couple of half chances throughout the game. Rondon has one when we go 1-0 down, and we'll talk about Brentford's penalty in a moment. Rondon has one when we go 1-0 down, and he hits it at the goalkeeper. Maybe that's unlucky. Maybe on another day that goes in. If you're enjoying, by the way, please hit that like button. 90-odd people watching. If you could get the likes up, that would be absolutely fantastic. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That would be brilliant. Rondon had a header in the second half, which flew past the post. Demarai Gray, as I said, when he come on, put those 2 balls across the box. Nobody was on the end of them. But other than that, we didn't have anything whatsoever. Now, as the title reads, Indecisive Benitez under pressure after another defeat. My biggest problem with Rafa Benitez's decisions yesterday was his indecisions, if that makes sense. His indecisiveness. I've backed Rafa Benitez, and I've been quite open in sitting here and saying that there's bigger issues with the football club. The board needs to go. The director of football has failed. The CEO doesn't know how to run a football club. The chairman just throws out Shakespeare quotes every now and then and expects everything to be sound. The playing staff are bang average, and half of them don't give a shit about playing for this football club. I've defended that the job that Rafa Benitez has on his hands, because it's a monumental job. Monumental. But he isn't helping himself at the moment, and I just don't understand in any situation, given he'll understand the pressure that's on him by fans, given he'll understand that fans aren't very happy going into a Merseyside derby, given he'll understand that fans will turn their back, and some fans are already sort of frustrated and wanting him out, and in fact a lot of fans are already wanting him to be sacked. I don't understand how, with half an hour to go, if you think about it, a half of football is 45 minutes long. That's one half of football. Now, 15 minutes into that second half yesterday, I could see, I'm sure everybody watching can see, I'm sure everybody watching a YouTube video could see that Brentford weren't offering anything. They didn't have the ball, they couldn't get near the ball, they weren't creating any chances, and in fact, every time they got the ball, they were giving it away to us. They almost seemed a bit shook to do anything. It was almost like just sit back and let's just, get this over and done with. We had the possession, we had the ball, we had the chances to create. Now, 15 minutes into the game, we found that out, 15 minutes into the second half, we knew that, which meant we had half an hour. The manager had half an hour to think, these are here for the taking here. They're not offering anything to the game. We're not being pinned back. They're not creating chances. They're not, they're not threatening us. We've got all of the ball. Let's go and get at them here. Throw the kitchen sink at them. Even if you don't take Solomon Rondon off, give him some support up front. Give him somebody else, a younger lad to run off to work with. The fact that Rafa Benitez deemed it acceptable to only use 1 out of a possible 3 substitutions to leave the likes of Lewis Dobbin, Ellis Sims, Cenk Tosun, Fabian Delph, Jean-Philippe Gbamin all on the bench is a decision that I simply can't get my head around. For a top tactician, one of the best tacticians in the world, the best manager out there we could get, I can't understand that, because I could see sat in ours that was clear as day, that we should have threw everything in that game and gone for it. What did we have to lose? We throw everything at it, they go up the other end, they score, we lose 2-0. Who gives a shit? What was more likely, the more realistic scenario, is we throw everything at it, they panic, because again, they needed the points, they needed the win, and we go and get a goal back or 2 goals back and go and win the game. Try and put ourselves in an opposite scenario. We're 1-0 up at Goodison Park in the second half. 15 minutes into the second half, we're not holding the ball up, we're not controlling possession. Every time we get the ball, we're giving it away. We're making silly passes. We're not in control of the game whatsoever. The opposition team is in total control, but we're 1-0 up with half an hour to go. I don't think there's a single team in the Premier League that don't make all 3 substitutes in that situation, that don't bring on another striker, that don't bring on another midfielder. Who gives a fuck if the opposition go up the other end and score another? We lose 2-0, great. What's more realistic to happen, what's more likely to happen, is Newcastle at Goodison a couple of years ago. They scored an extra 2 goals. How many times have we seen teams make a couple of substitutions and it changed the game? I don't understand how he watched that entirety of the second half I don't understand how he watched Damari Gray put 2 really good crosses into a dangerous area and still seem to think that we didn't need another striking option up front. There was many of options he could have gone with. He could have put Fabian Delphine, who, by the way, was excellent against Wolves when he come on at half-time. Was excellent against Tottenham at Goodison. And, okay, he was a bit shit last week against Manchester City, that's fine. But so was everybody. You could have put Fabian Delphine and then pushed Abdoulaye Doucouré forward to give him that option. John says you're speaking about the Wolves game, the Watford game there, mate. I'm speaking about every game, mate. I'm definitely speaking about yesterday's game, but they just all fall into the same bracket because it's all the same shit. You could have put Abdoulaye Doucouré a bit further forward. Abdoulaye Doucouré, for me, was our only real goal threat yesterday. And he didn't even have a shot, I don't think. But Andros Townsend was dross. Solomon Rondon doesn't offer a threat in any form. Alex Iwobi may as well have been sat in ours. The only real goal threat was Abdoulaye Doucouré. You could have put Fabian Delphine in the midfield, made it a 3-man midfield, and pushed Doucouré forward and had him right behind Solomon Rondon, almost in that, Fellaini type of role that we saw when Marouane Fellaini was at the football club, playing as that number 10 behind the striker, even as a split striker, a false 9 at times. We know Abdoulaye Doucouré can score goals. We know he's got the energy to burst into those areas when good crosses are going into the box. We seen him burst into an area and it was defended by Rondon, who was getting dragged all over the place. So that is my big... Another option he could have done. He could have put Ellis Sims on. He's just giving the lad a new contract. For what? What's the point? What's the point? To protect the asset? If he's not good enough to be an Everton player, why did we give him a new contract? If he is good enough to be an Everton player, but he's just not ready for the Premier League, why is he still at the club and why wasn't he loaned out? If he is good enough for the Premier League, why wasn't he given a chance? Again, I'm not in this boat of start these young lads who have got very little experience, but what I am in the boat of is if we watch Solomon Rondon stroll round for another 40, 50 minutes doing fuck all, why not give one of the young lads 25 minutes, half an hour to go and prove themselves? At the very least, they'll run round. Yes, they mightn't score, they mightn't assist, they mightn't even touch the ball, but at the very least, they'll run round and they'll work hard, and that is more than what you can say for Solomon Rondon and Alex Iwobi at the moment, and even Andros Townsend yesterday. He doesn't escape criticism either. He was awful. So that for me is the big problem I have with Rafa Benitez yesterday, is how he watched that game and didn't feel it or didn't deem it necessary to make 3 substitutions. How can you be 1-0 down away from home in a must win game to a side that, no disrespect to Brentford, aren't very good and weren't offering anything, and still not think, I'm going to put all 3 substitutions on here, I'm going to go for this game. Even if he looked at, Sims and Dobbin and thought, you're not experienced enough, I don't want to choose you. What's the excuse for Cenk Tosun? I'm not Cenk Tosun's biggest fan. I don't think he's got a future at Everton Football Club, and I don't think he's very good. But he's shown in previous years he can score goals in the Premier League, and he would have at least offered us something different. He would have at least offered us a threat up front. It would have shown us as fans that the manager wanted to change the game. It would have shown us as fans that the manager was actively looking to go and win the game. I sit here now, and I honestly can't be sure that Rafa Benitez wanted to win that game yesterday. I can't. Because he made one substitution, and within 5 minutes, that one substitution had put in 2 wonderful balls into dangerous areas. Nobody was on the end of them. We still had 15-20 minutes to go, and he never made another sub. So I can't be sure that the manager actually wanted to win that game yesterday. And as I said before, I fear at the moment that he's putting Solomon Rondon's fitness ahead of Everton picking up points. I.e., well, if we take Rondon off and put Sims on, he won't gain his fitness. I don't give a fuck about Solomon Rondon's fitness. I really don't give a fuck. Have him in an hour before everybody else and make him stay an hour after everybody else. Give him a routine, a regime to do at home. Have him running around it. I don't give a fuck about how fit or unfit he is. I care about winning games of football and picking up points, and we're not doing it at the moment. We're simply not, and there was no reason to not make those changes yesterday. Absolutely no reason. And this is what I'm saying with Rafa Benitez. Yes, he isn't the biggest problem at the football club. Yes, you could say, well, who do we go out and get if he gets sacked? Yes, there's an absolute plethora of idiots at this club that shouldn't be anywhere near Everton and need moving out. But the manager isn't helping himself when you're managing a game that poorly. You're managing a game like that. When you know you've got pressure by fans. Had he have thrown on Ellis Sims and Lewis Dobbin and we still lost the game, we could all sit here and say, well, yeah, the players aren't too good, the manager's got it wrong, but at least he tried to change it, at least he threw a couple of strikers on, at least he tried to make it, make a change. I would absolutely love to sit down with Rafa Benitez and say, what was going through your mind when you witnessed us being a goal down in a must-win game, controlling the ball and controlling the game with 20 minutes to go, and you didn't feel the need to utilise your extra 2 substitutions? And he might say, because the players on the bench aren't good enough. The players on the pitch weren't good enough and haven't been good enough for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. How do we know Ellis Sims isn't good enough? How do we know Lewis Dobbin isn't good enough? You could say he watches them insane and he sees them insane, but a player can have an absolute fucking stinker all week insane and miss every single chance he gets, get 10 minutes at the end of a game and a ball falls to him fortuitously in the box and he finishes it. Because that's football, that's what happens. What I can tell, what I know as a certain is that we were never scoring with that forward line yesterday. Never ever scoring with it. And he never changed it. And that, as I said, that's my biggest worry with Rafa Benitez, is I look at it now and I think, at what point do you sort of say you're digging your own grave here? You sort of, you're walking on thin ice, really. Because, as I said, he already was coming in on a sort of, with a lot of controversy surrounding the appointment, and the season started well. And yes, we've had injuries, and yes, we've had other problems, and I get that. And yes, we've got other major problems at the football club. I understand all of that. But for me, that defeat yesterday falls on the manager, and those decisions they're not excusable. They're simply not excusable. Having to play Seamus Coleman every week, that's not on Rafa Benitez. Marcel Brands has failed to bring in a right back for 3 years. Seamus Coleman shouldn't be anywhere near starting for Everton Football Club week in, week out. It's simple. Anzot Townsend shouldn't be starting for Everton Football Club week in, week out. But we had absolutely fuck all money in the summer because we'd wasted it up the wall over the last 5-6 years or so. That's not Rafa Benitez's fault. Persisting with the same players that are letting us down week in, week out and being too stubborn to change it is the manager's fault. And I'm sorry, but that's just the case. Let's get into the live comments then. I do want to talk about Brentford's penalty situation. I want to talk about Everton's penalty appeal, or lack of appeal, should we say? A couple of minutes later, and obviously, as I said, we're going to talk about the derby, future of this football club, and as is, because I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know where we go from here. I really, really don't know where we go from here. I'm dreading Wednesday. I'm dreading the next couple of months as an Evertonian. I just don't see us picking up any points. I really, really don't. I just think this is a squad full of, firstly, bang average mediocre footballers, but secondly, bang average mediocre footballers who don't give a fuck about Everton, as well as a manager who has shown his stubbornness in recent weeks that isn't going to get him anywhere. A board who seem to think that what we're seeing is acceptable and okay. And a fan base of very, very, very frustrated Evertonians that I think are increasingly becoming less and less interested as the weeks go on. Anyway, if you're enjoying, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. That would mean an absolutely massive amount to me. If you could share the stream, that would be fantastic. That would be absolutely fantastic. And if you are new to the channel, as I said, don't forget to subscribe. Let's get back in the live comments then before we finish up. Before we continue talking about the game. I can't remember where it was. David says Burnley, Norwich, Brighton, Newcastle and Norwich are must wins over Christmas. And how likely is it that we win all of those games? Very unlikely, in my opinion. Very unlikely. Creeper says, no, John Morris. Aaron Yates says, I personally think the performance yesterday, I could see a few positives compared to recent games. The problem is creating chances and finishing up top. The biggest issue I have with it is whilst, yes, we were better yesterday than we have been in recent weeks, we were playing an awful Brentford side who offered nothing for 45 minutes and we still couldn't create a chance. So if we couldn't create a chance against that Brentford team yesterday, it doesn't matter how much better we play, we're going to struggle to pick up any form of points over the next few weeks and months. And as I said before, I'm not saying Everton will get relegated, but if Everton find themselves, if this squad of players find themselves in a relegation battle over the next couple of months, I don't think they've got the bollocks. I don't think they've got the determination. I don't think they've got the grit. I don't think they've got the desire to pull themselves out of that relegation battle. I think it'll more likely be rolling over, feeling sorry for themselves and playing championship football next year. Need the right back in January, says live football goals. Absolutely the 1st of January we need the right back. Joseph says Benitez out, we lost Liverpool. Ewan says Benitez given sack time frame as Everton board. I don't know where that's come from, but I don't believe it. Whammy says, Semi said if we were totally controlled the game but we had not enough front. Needs to be sacked, says Joseph. Gavin says if Rafa gets sacked, Joseph Brands and the majority of the squad and the majority of the board and backroom staff. As I said on yesterday, sack them all. Get them all out. None of them deserve to be here. Live football goals as Pickford, Dean, Keane, Godfrey, Coleman, Alan Decore, Delph Gray, Richie Townsend has to play. Keep going on the bench. But even that, Townsend has been crap recently. Coleman, for me, is past it. And it's not his fault. But he shouldn't be anywhere near Everton's side. Keane and Godfrey are bang average this year. Dean's been awful this year. Alan hasn't been amazing. One of them. Wibby says no one knows how to score. No, Gordon has to play as a keeper boy. Alan says I don't want Benitez sacked. He needs more time. Come on, we need to see who he brings in. Bringing in another manager will only make things worse. Eugene says you should do a poll now. Rafa in or Rafa out. You know what? I'm gonna do that. And Jebo says hello, La. And Whammy says when you shit choices or shit choices, you're probably gonna make shit decisions. Yeah, and I get that. But I just think when you go with one choice and it doesn't work. And okay, your other option might be shit, but why not go with it? And see what happens. If that doesn't work as well, then we can all sit here and say, well, he tried both options and neither worked. But only trying one makes you think, well, who knows what could have happened had, he tried another option. And as I said, I just think it's stubbornness. We're going to do a poll then, as requested in the live comments, of course. It's simple. Are you Rafa in or Rafa out? We can give our reasoning in the comments. We can talk about it much more in the comments. But it's simple. Are you Rafa in or Rafa out? Yes or no? The poll will be up live in a couple of seconds. Get your votes in on that. Nearly 100 people watching. If you could get the likes up, it would be absolutely brilliant. If you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching live, get involved in that poll. It's simple. Are you Rafa in or Rafa out? It makes absolutely no sense. I've just realised I'm going to have to do another poll because I've done are you Rafa in and Rafa out, and then I've basically said yes or no, which makes no sense, which is Everton, isn't it? It's absolutely Everton. Everton all over that. Asking a question that can't be answered. Right, let's do another one. Rafa in or Rafa out? Typical. This football club. In, out. Right, let's go. And then we are going to get back into talking about that absolute shit show yesterday. Right, there you go. Natty says it doesn't make sense. I've done another one. Rafa in or Rafa out? In, out. I think that one makes sense. Yeah, look, as I said, for me, I'm finding it increasingly more difficult to find the energy to care really anymore. And I'll always care, and I'll always go the game, and I'll always, I'll always support Everton, but it's just really, really tough at the moment. Really, really tough. Anyway, let's talk about the game then in a bit more detail. As I said, Everton start the game very similarly to how we've started a lot of first halves of football so far this season. And by that, I mean we were atrocious. Brentford were growing in confidence as the game, went on. And whilst they didn't have an awful lot of quality, whilst they weren't creating an awful lot, whilst they weren't particularly keeping the ball, you could see that they sort of found themselves in a position where they thought, do you know what, we can get something out of this game, so let's go and get something out of this game. They were pressurising us, they were putting pressure on us. Abdoulaye Doucouré was back in the Everton team, made a couple of bad passes, a couple of bad decisions in the opening 5 or 10 minutes, but to be honest with you, again, it was always going to be the case. He needed to get his fitness back up. He needed to get some game time under his belt. And when he did, I think in the second half, he was very, very good. And I think he grew into the game, very well in the end. Alan was sort of his usual self. But you could see almost straight away that we had absolutely nothing going for us up front. You could tell that from early on in the Manchester City game when Damari Gray went off, and Alex Iwobi come on. You sort of knew from that point that we weren't going to have much to create whatsoever, and we didn't have any creativity on the pitch, and it was the same yesterday. We had absolutely no creativity on the pitch whatsoever. Brentford, obviously, again, as I said, not causing too many issues. Everton sort of having a fair share of the ball, fair share of the possession, but doing absolutely nothing with it. We've sort of gotten into this habit at the moment where no player can pass a ball 5 yards, which is extremely worrying that Premier League footballers can't pass a ball 5 yards. It baffles me, if I'm being honest with you. It absolutely baffles me. So yeah, as I said, we were really, really poor, not really offering anything to the game. Brentford were, again, it was just a bad first sort of opening 20-25 minutes of football. Nothing really was happening. Neither team were really causing any big issues. And it was sort of like another one of those, is it going to be another one of those days for Everton? Brentford throw a ball into the box. Andros Townsend, well, firstly, Jordan Pickford comes out and probably in hindsight flaps at it. Listen, there'll be a big debate on whether or not Jordan should do better or shouldn't do better. He got an hand to it, and he ultimately, cleared the ball. Maybe he could have caught it. Maybe he could have been a little bit more convincing, but he wasn't. And the ball's bouncing around in the box. Andros Townsend decides to throw a foot up in the air. And as with any type of challenge like that, that it is always going to end in absolute disaster, because if you've put your foot that high in the air and an opposition player anticipates you're going to put your foot that high in the air, they will automatically go for the ball with their head, because they know that whilst there's a slight chance they might get hurt, there's a massive chance that you'll kick them in the head, they'll go down rolling around, and it's a penalty. And I sort of knew straight away that whilst Andros Townsend goes for the ball, whilst it's unintentional, you knew straight away that with VAR and slow motion replays and zooming in on Yeka's face as he's pulling all sorts of mad faces when he goes down, and teeth are flying out and there's blood effects on the telly, you just knew with the slow motion replay and VAR it was always going to get given. Now, one really, really important thing about the penalty that I would say is that the play was allowed to carry on. The referee initially didn't deem the situation a penalty. He waved it away. He obviously felt like it was a fair enough challenge, I suppose. And he waved it away, and Everton actually broke up the other end with Anthony Gordon. Got into a decent enough area, put the ball across the box, and obviously I think Solomon Rondon had a shot and it went out for a corner. The referee then subsequently blew up. And obviously went to VAR, and then the decision was made to give a penalty. But I actually think this, as I said, really important sort of factor in the penalty was Onyeka's decision to stay on the floor and roll around. I think had he have gotten up and carried on with the play, and sort of just shrugged it off and moved on with the game, I don't think that would have been given as a penalty, to be honest. But the fact that he stayed on the floor, rolled around a little bit, had his hands in his head, forced A, the referee to blow up because it was a head injury, and B, VAR to have a look at it. And now I don't care what anybody says. VAR can be manipulated. I don't care what anybody on this planet tells me. VAR can be manipulated. If you feel a challenge can win your team a penalty or a significant decision, and you roll around on the floor screaming and shouting and you force it to be a stoppage in play, VAR is much more likely going to have a deeper, more thorough look at that situation, and you're more than likely going to get the decision. If you get fouled and get straight back up and carry on with the game, then VAR are more than likely going to go, actually, do you know what? Probably won't look at that. He's got up, he's got on with the game. We'll move away from it. The referee has moved on with the game. Just sort of, we'll scan over it. Exactly like they did with Solomon Rondon's penalty situation, which we'll talk about in a second. But as I said, Onyeka, I think, manipulates the VAR. He stays down, he rolls around, he's holding his head, players are around him. The referee goes over as if to say, shit, what have I missed here? Obviously, VAR takes a look, and from that point, it was always going to be a penalty. As I said, with the slow motion replay, with the with the player rolling around holding his head, with Townsend, not getting a good enough touch on the ball, it was always going to be given as a penalty. It was given as a penalty. And lo and behold, Ivan Toney, who hadn't scored a Premier League goal at home for Brentford all season, stepped up and calmly slotted it into the back of the net to make it 1-0. Now, call me negative, call me pessimistic, call me, an idiot, call me whatever you want to call me. I felt at that point that was game over. I honestly felt at that point that was game, set and match. I knew deep down that there was no way we were getting back into that game, because not only for the opening however many minutes had we looked like we weren't going to score or we weren't going to create a clear-cut chance, but also notoriously over the last however many months and years, these players drop their heads in a scenario like that. If we're in a bad run of form, if we're in a bad spell, if pressure's mounting, if fans aren't happy, if players are putting in bad performances, then you go 1-0 down away from home and you're probably not going to get back in the game. And I knew it. I knew it straight away. The one thing I was sort of hoping is that Rafa Benitez would see that and understand that and make a proactive change with enough time to change the game. Not just bring on Demarai Gray to put in really, really nice balls into an area where nobody's there, because as I said before, Solomon Rondon's still waiting for the coach. But to bring on Demarai Gray and Ellis Sims and Lewis Dobbin, or push Abdoulaye Doucouré further up, so when Demarai Gray's fizzing those balls in, Abdoulaye Doucouré can be on the end of them. But he didn't. He didn't choose to make that decision. And yeah, the game played on, as I said, 1-0 down. If you're enjoying, by the way, hit that thumbs up button. We're averaging about 100 viewers, so if we could get the likes up to at least 50, that would be absolutely fantastic. Get your thoughts in the comments. We will be getting in them in just a second. Don't forget to vote on that poll as well. It's a simple question. Are you Rafa in or Rafa out? Get your votes in, and we'll get into that poll as well. If you watch this as a YouTube video, get your thoughts down below in the comments. A couple of minutes later, Everton have a chance to respond straight away. Really nice bit of counter-attack and play. Solomon Rondon's fed in. He takes a shot. The keeper makes a good save. And I'm sort of torn between Solomon Rondon not being very good and the goalkeeper just making a really, really good save at that point, to be honest with you. It probably wasn't the clearest of chances, and it would probably be maybe a little bit harsh to, sit here and say, oh my God, Rondon should be doing much better there. But if you're a striker, you get a one-on-one with a goalkeeper, you turn your defender, you're playing for a team that don't create many chances and don't score many goals, I would expect you to put that in the back of the net. But he didn't. The game plays on. He didn't put it in the back of the net. We carry on. But relatively promising signs. And I thought at this point that Anthony Gordon is a player I want to pick out. Because I thought at this point that Anthony Gordon was our best performer. Now, I tweeted this out and got a lot of stick for it. Some people saying he's awful, he's not good enough, he doesn't create anything, this, that and the other. Granted, the second half, he wasn't very good. He wasn't in the game half as much. He gave the ball away a couple of times unnecessary, and he wasn't creating anywhere near as much as he was, well, at least trying to create in that first half. So, understandably, the second half, he was not very good. But there was one constant with Anthony Gordon's performance, and there's been one constant with Anthony Gordon's performances all season, and that has been that he works hard. And I don't think that any Evertonian watching live or watching a YouTube video or, on Twitter or Instagram or whatever can honestly sit there and say to me that working hard isn't good enough. When we have a team that consists of 90% players, that consists of 90% of the players can't be bothered to work hard. So yes, Anthony Gordon wasn't fantastic yesterday, understandable. And yes, in the second half he tailed off massively. But at the very least, he worked hard. He fought for the team. He tried to make things happen in that first half. He tried to create chances. And yes, it didn't, it didn't come off. Didn't come off in the end. But he looked like the only one that really gave a shit, to be honest, which is for me is sort of, it gives him a free pass. I'm not saying he's good enough to start week in, week out for Everton in the future. He is at the minute because we've got nobody else. But I'm not going to sit here and slag a player off who I see personally. Some people might disagree with this, and that's absolutely fine. But who I see personally as one of the only players that has worked, works hard, tirelessly works, puts the effort in, and, actually shows that he cares, actually shows that he wants to change a game, wants to create chances, wants to score goals, wants to get in the right areas, wants to do all of that. I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, but he's absolutely awful, this, that and the other, because yes, he mightn't be good enough to be in the first team. Yes, he might be good enough to start every week. Well, he is at the minute because we've got nobody else, and he's much more effective than Alex Iwobi, much more. And that's where I see it with the Anthony Gordon situation. As I said, game sort of plays on. Again, Brentford at this point are having, chance after chance after chance after chance. We were almost lucky to to sort of escape at 1-0 at that point. I've just absolutely volleyed my mic, which is great. We were almost lucky to escape at 1-0 at that point. Brentford were piling the pressure on, and yes, they didn't have a lot of quality in the final third, and yes, it wasn't like they were creating unbelievable chance after unbelievable chance, but they were certainly getting in the right areas. They were certainly causing us problems. They were certainly, again, giving us something to think about. We go in at half-time, 1-0 down. Just before half-time, actually. I think it was just before half-time. Everton have a penalty call of their own. Ball, cross comes in the box. Abdoulaye Doucouré runs onto it, gets his head on the end of it. It's blocked by Solomon Rondon. How ironic. But it's blocked by Solomon Rondon, who is being dragged to left, right and centre. And his shirt is effectively over his head at this point. Now, the biggest problem I have with this is that nobody complained. Nobody complained whatsoever. Nobody deemed it necessary to have a go at the referee. Nobody deemed it necessary to appeal the situation. Nobody deemed it necessary to roll around on the floor and manipulate the VAR as Onyeka did 10-15 minutes earlier. Now, we speak about Everton being Mr. Nice FC, Everton being too nice, don't want to cause anybody problems, don't want to, don't want to give referees something to think about, don't want to argue with decisions, this, that and the other. But that is a nonsense for me, because that is a penalty all day long. Every pundit that has spoken about the game after it has said it's a penalty all day long. I could see as a fan, I'm sure you could all see, sat at home, that's a penalty all day long. And Solomon Rondon would have known that was a penalty all day long. Why isn't he going over and getting in the referee's face and saying, hang on a minute, go and check that, I was ragged everywhere there. We got one earlier on in the season against Leeds. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was ragged over in very similar fashion, and we got the penalty. Why aren't these Everton players in the referee's ear saying, go and check that, that's a blatant penalty? I don't understand it. They don't even have to have seen it. They don't even have to have seen the challenge or the situation or whatever. They just have to have understood. And it starts with Solomon Rondon or Abdoulaye Doucouré, because they're the only two that were sort of in and around that position that could say, those two can't say that they didn't see it. Everybody else could say, oh, I missed it. Those two are two that simply can't say they didn't see it. And it starts with those two. Why aren't they going over to the referee, screaming and shouting, knowing our inability to create chances and score goals at the moment? Why aren't they going over, screaming and shouting and forcing the referee into checking that? And some people would say, yeah, but, they shouldn't have to do that because VAR should check that. As I've just said, VAR is easily manipulated. And if you're willing to go down under a challenge and get straight back up and carry on with the game with no appeal, VAR probably isn't going to look at it, because they're certainly not going to look at it thoroughly, because they're going to think, oh, well, he just got back up and got on with the game, so he clearly didn't feel like there was an infringement. If you go down and you roll around and you hold your head and you make a fuss of it and you get in the referee's face and you 5, 6, 7 of you are surrounding the referee saying, hang on, what's going on there? Then the referee's going to think, do you know what? I'll take a look at this. The VAR are going to think, do you know what? I'll have a little look at this, because there's obviously something that's gone on here, because these feel like they've been hard done by. And that's when the referee gets told, not sure about that, go and have a little look at the monitor. And that's when the referee goes, yeah, dragged everywhere, blatant penalty, thank you. But when players are just getting up and getting on with it, VAR isn't going to have that thorough of a look. And that's what I'm saying about these players not really caring, not really being that arsed about winning or about getting results at Everton, not really being that arsed about upsetting the apple cart at this football club. They're not really that arsed, clearly. And that's my biggest problem with them. Why Solomon Rondon wasn't in the referee's ear? Why, again, as I said, everyone then didn't follow. Seamus Coleman's the club captain. Even if Solomon Rondon gets in the referee's ear and Seamus Coleman hasn't seen what's gone on, he still should be storming over and just basically repeating what Rondon's saying. He doesn't have to have seen it. He doesn't have to understand it. Just say, yeah, what he said, he's been fouled there. Check that. That's a disgrace. But we don't do it. As somebody said in the live comments then. Where's the comment? I can't find it. Where are we? It's round here somewhere. Anyway, I can't find it. It read, here it is, Martin Cummins. Imagine if Klopp or Pep had one of their players had their shirts ripped off. Exactly. Imagine if Liverpool or Man City or Chelsea or Man United were 1-0 down in a game that they were struggling in, and one of their players went down in a situation like that. The manager would be in the ear of the fourth official for about 10 minutes afterwards. The players would be surrounding the referee. They'd be forcing that decision to be made, or certainly forcing it to be looked at more thoroughly than it was. We don't. We just accept it and sort of accept our fate. And for me, it's just, it's sad, and it's just, it's just not good enough for me. It's just not good enough. It really isn't. And there's this acceptance, there's this overall acceptance of, yeah, well, it's Everton, isn't it? So, it is what it is. And it's a mentality that needs ridding of the football club. And then, as I said, after that, the game carries on, Rafa Benitez decides to not make more than one change, which, as I mentioned before, absolutely baffles me. And Everton go on and lose another game, heading into a massively important Merseyside derby in awful form, coming up against a really good side in what, for me, is make or break for Rafa Benitez. I think if he loses this game and loses it comprehensively, I don't think he stays in a job beyond then. I really don't. Whether we agree with that or disagree with it, I just don't think he stays in the job beyond that point. So, look, we will have to wait and see what happens on Wednesday night. We will be back with the live game preview to that game tomorrow, so don't forget to join us at around about the same time, 4:45 tomorrow evening, with that game. Don't forget to get your votes in on the poll. 84 votes. If you could get a few more in, that would be absolutely brilliant. It is Rafa in or Rafa out. Let us know your thoughts. We are going to finish with the live stream in just a moment. If you've enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well if you're new. That would mean a great deal to me. Who's better than Rafa out there, says Daniel. Dennis says, no, they're all much worse with depth for league positions. It'll be close, but we'll survive. Tom says, all my mates at school who support the shite, even laughing. Not even laughing, they just feel sorry for us because we're that bad. Yeah, that's when you know it's that bad, when your rivals feel sorry for you. Dennis says, only positive is Machedi might have to communicate with fans if it's an embarrassing loss. He won't though, will he? He won't. Do you think we should play a 3 in midfield against Liverpool? I do. We drew at Leeds, got away with it against Norwich, and have Newcastle after Burnley. If we don't get anything from those games into the new year, then we're going down. We need 8 wins to stay up, says David. Yeah, I can't really disagree with that, to be honest with you. Martin says, alright, Cam, it's a complete shit show from top to bottom by January, bottom 3. Yeah, it is. Ananda says, there is more dire than when Allardyce came to the football club. None of the players looked up for it, but these the same players play for their national teams and do exceptionally well. Club is the problem. Mentality at the club is the problem. Acceptance of mediocrity is the problem. Callum Cox says, I'm an optimistic person. I've tried to be all season, but I'm finding it very difficult. Tom says, he needs to be given money, Cam, in my opinion, then we can just judge him. We can judge him as being left with players, 2-3 managers and all, then could not sort this group out, so Rafa needs some money. Interesting. Alex says, October and November have been horrible. They have. Klopp, you make me laugh, says Mark. Martin says, when he across the park at the shite, they hated the negative attitude playing till they win the European Cup. Natty says the board use managers to shield themselves. They should all go too. Spot on, mate. Spot on. Yeah, there is much bigger issues at this football club than Rafa Benitez, but I feel he is an issue at the moment. Everton Rose says relegation scrap. Yes. Rather relegation full stop. Rose in the chat. Sack says we have to get behind Rafa for Wednesday. He's not to blame for the 500 million we've wasted on the brands. We must give him time and let him turn the tanker. Let's wait and see. And Martin says great team, Cam. Let's see our prayers for Wednesday. Let's end that poll then before we finish the stream. As I said, we will be back tomorrow around about 4:45 with the live game preview to the Merseyside derby, so we'll be talking a lot more about that and why I feel it's make or break for Rafa Benitez tomorrow. The votes are in. Rafa in or Rafa out. 54% of people are Rafa out and 45% of people are Rafa in out of 91 votes. So the majority there wanting Rafa Benitez to leave the football club. Let's wait and see what happens. Anyway, we are going to have to finish it up there then. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Massive thanks to everybody in the live comments. I really do appreciate it. I am awfully sorry I couldn't get through all of the comments. But I've got to dart, unfortunately, so I do apologise for that. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that thumbs up button. It does only take a second, and if you're new to the channel, as I said before, don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below in the YouTube comments, and we'll get involved with as many of them as we can. And yeah, as I said, we'll be back live tomorrow. David says, anyway, that'll do it for today. Come back on Wednesday for the post-match rant. We'll be back tomorrow, mate. We'll be back tomorrow. Anyway, big thank you for watching. Another utterly dreadful, diabolical performance from Everton, leading into what is looking like an impossible task on Wednesday night, but let's wait and see. Big thanks for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you soon.